Good evening, everyone. This feels so much like a family reunion, which I think says a lot about NCBI. You know, we're celebrating our 30th anniversary, and we for years have said it's really all about relationships. And this sense of a family reunion is really a manifestation of our core value, which is relationships. So good evening, and welcome everyone to the National Coalition Building Institute's 30th anniversary celebration. We are so glad you're here, either here for real, or via cyberspace, because we are live streaming this. I'm not even sure if that's how you say it, but there is a cyberspace thing going on. We have a great evening planned for you, and I think of the evening as having two centerpieces. You know, at a table there's usually one centerpiece. Well, we have a long table, and there are two centerpieces. And one of the centerpieces is an opportunity for us to share our best practices. 30 years, we've got some best practices. So that's one centerpiece of the evening. And the other centerpiece is our presentation for the first time of our Dove Award to the esteemed Benjamin Todd Jealous. And while I will more formally introduce Mr. Jealous later on in the evening, we get to acknowledge him again. So thank you very much for being here. I am Phyllis Alexander. I am a long-time associate of the National Coalition Building Institute. Currently, I have the privilege and the honor to serve as the president of the board of directors. And tonight, I get to serve as the moderator of this evening's program. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, you know how we just previously acknowledged Mr. Jealous? You clapped, you know, you said, woohoo. So let's do a little more of that. While we are in an acknowledgement kind of frame of mind, let's see who's in the room. And so for many of you, this will be familiar, this formula. I'm getting ready to ask you 4 questions. And so when I ask a question that you belong to this category, you get to stand and be welcomed in. You ready? Yeah. So I'm going to do this by geography. We're just going to get a sense of who's in the room by geography. I'm going to ask 4 questions. Who is here from outside of the United States? Since we're in the United States, let's start with, I'm going to, just wait. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to do it so that there's no confusion. So I'm going to ask who's outside of the United States, and then in terms of the United States, I'm just dividing it in 3 categories: West Coast, Middle U.S., and East Coast, okay? So those of us who are from outside of the United States, please stand and receive your welcome. Woo! So I know we've got Switzerland in the house, right? And who else? Canada. Who else? Macedonia. Woo! Anyone else? Yes. UK. All right. Did we get everyone from outside the United States? Okay, so within the United States, those of you who are from the West Coast, please stand and receive your welcome. Woo-hoo! Thank you. Middle United States, please stand and receive your welcome. Really? Oh, well. Well, we'll applaud them anyway, because that's what we do. And those of us from the East Coast, please stand and receive your welcome. All right. So again, welcome, welcome, welcome. So we'll get started with the first centerpiece, which is our opportunity to share our best practices. But before we do that, I don't know what people are going to share in terms of their best practices. So I wanted to at least have one testimony about how NCBI has impacted someone's life. So I'm going to give you mine. This month is my 25th year with NCBI. And I can remember, thank you, I can remember the train the trainer that I went to, 5 days in Massachusetts. And throughout that train the trainer, I was doing just like Phyllis is doing right now. I was kind of nodding my head, all throughout, because either I was hearing information that I believed, I thought, I experienced, or I was hearing information that was new, but I was like, yeah, that's right. And so my association with NCBI is both the organization writ large as well as with my affinity groups. So with the Black African Heritage Constituency Caucus, with the Women's Constituency Caucus, all of that has contributed to my experience. And the way I think of it is that NCBI is has contributed to the backstage of my life. So if you've ever been part of a production and there's a venue, right, there's the front of the house. And those of you who are part of that production know that what's going on at the backstage is making what's possible at the front of the house, right? So NCBI has been part of my backstage making this possible. So that's my personal testimony. And I would imagine that all of us could do some sort of we're not. I'm going to stick to the agenda. Cherie was giving me that look. I'm going to stick to the agenda. But I dare say that we all have a story as friends, as leaders, associates, trainers, as friends and family of leaders, associates, and trainers. We all have got a story about how NCBI has made a difference in our life. So here's to 30 years. So let's get started with the best practices. And we've got 6 folks who are going to share a best practice from their particular role within NCBI. And we get started with Cherie R. Brown, who is our founder and CEO.
Whoa. I keep thinking all day when I think 30 years, there's some way it's hard to totally absorb that we have been 30 years. And some of you have heard me say that NCBI started as an answer. They had just come out with answering machines. And I so excitedly, in the summer of 1984, bought my first answering machine. And we were just brainstorming a name for this entity. And someone said National Coalition Building Institute. So in my bedroom, I set up the answering machine and I set the message, hello, this is Cherie Brown in the National Coalition Building Institute. And it was birthed. And it's pretty amazing to look out and think of the decades of work that's represented here in this room and the impact that we've had on each other's lives and so many millions of lives. I know Phyllis did an up-down. I also wanted to do an up-down. It's kind of in the cells, which is how long people have been with NCBI. So those of you that are 26 to 30 years with NCBI, to please stand and be acknowledged. Those of you that are 20 to 25 years with NCBI. 15 to 20 years. 10 to 15 years. 5 to 10 years. And under 5 years. The thing to me that's most evident is that when NCBI gets into people's hearts and souls, they continue. That we have a longevity. And I often like to say that Joyce Shabazz is often saying to me that NCBI is like the little engine that could. And tonight, as I look out at us and I think about us, I want to add to the little engine that could, the big engine that did. That we are also the big engine that did. And there are so many ways that I think that we have had impact. Thousands and thousands of high school students doing a program on coastal restoration in Louisiana. Environmentalists came up to me and said, Agnes, which was 15, 18 years ago, train the trainer, and that's why I became an environmentalist, and here I am leading this organization now in Louisiana. Those stories are everywhere. On a phone call a few weeks ago with NASPA, the National Association of Students, partner with them in a violence prevention program, and someone said, National Coalition Building Institute, they are known as the best program on campuses in the country. And this was a leader of campus work. And then on another call last week with John Furman, who's a friend and ally of NCBI, who is the research director of the International Association of Chiefs of Police, he wanted me to know that he tells everyone in the country that if you want the best program on trust building between law enforcement and community citizens, you need NCBI. So in so many sectors, so from a student who his life changed and he went into the work he did because of NCBI, to our law enforcement, that we are having huge impact. And I have to say, I heard from our honoree that when he was a college student, one of the things that, in addition to all the things that we'll learn about him, is his parents launched the chapter of NCBI in Monterey, California. His parents, Ann and Fred Jellis, who have been great allies and friends and leaders of NCBI. And Ben said that he just realized that when he was a college student, he had been given an NCBI t-shirt, all for one and one for all, and that phrase became in many of his speeches. So the influence that we have, and I just learned that tonight, so the influence that we have is far-reaching. And when I thought about the best practice that I wanted to share that I think has helped sustain us for 30 years, that I look back to the vision of when I started NCBI, and for me it was about having a strong commitment to linking activism with individual healing work. And the phrase that our NCBI leader Larry Bell came up with, healing into action, has been at the core of NCBI and sustained us. That activism would always be linked with individual healing work, that every campus conference, leaders meeting, we would always take time to have individual healing work. And I think that is one of the fundamental reasons that we have people in this room that have been with us for 20 and close to 30 years, because we have had that commitment to link those two things and to never forget the importance of that work. The unnumbing, the facing honestly the painful realities of oppression with courage and integrity, and healing the internalized oppression that keeps us from being able to know our own significance has been the core of NCBI programs. And that even in the most urgent times, with oppression rising, that we've worked very hard to remember that relationships are deeply at the core of our work. So I am incredibly honored to stand together with all of you and to celebrate 30 years of amazing relationship, activism, healing into action work, and look forward to continuing to partner with you for many, many years to come.